It started out with graphene and then it went to functions. I'm doing FOIL to solve X. Next is the expressions. Now I have to see if X is equal to or greater than 3.
Alright, let's go over lesson 3.9 here, using studies wisely. We're at the end of chapter 3. And our learning targets after this lesson, you should be able to, number 1, identify when it is appropriate to use information from a sample to make an inference or conclusion about a population, and when it's appropriate to make an inference or conclusion about cause and effect. And then our second learning target is evaluate if a statistical study has been carried out in an ethical manner. Learning target number 1, researchers who conduct statistical studies often want to draw conclusions. Conclusions. And another word for conclusion is a statistical word we've been using as making inferences. From the data they produce. The type of inference that can be made from a study depends on how the study was designed. So, the scope of inference, a random selection, I'm going to underline random selection, or you can highlight it, of individuals allows inference about the population. So when you're about to pick people, you're randomly picking them from, think back to the aliens in Toy Story. Right? When you pick them with the claw, that kind of speaks about the whole population. Random assignment. So now that you've got these little aliens, how do you assign them to different groups of? So random assignment of individuals to groups permits inference about cause and effect. Because essentially what you're doing there is you're running an experiment. Okay, example 1a. Do all children react to a cartoon the same way? The scope of inference. It's meant to be in parentheses because that's what the question's about. Recall the study on the effect of fast-paced cartoons of affect executive function, which is decision-making, in children. The children were randomly, I'm gonna underline that, were randomly divided. Okay, now you're doing these. I should put that in green because this is the assignment there. Does that make sense? Into 3 groups. One group was fast-paced cartoon, one group was shown an educational cartoon, and one group was given art supplies and instructed to draw pictures. All the children spent 9 minutes watching the cartoon or drawing, and afterward tests of executive function decision-making were given 30 minutes after the children finished watching or drawing. Note, the researchers were careful to conclude that their study only showed evidence of temporary reduction in executive brain function because the tests were administered 30 minutes after the treatments were given. So it wasn't like right afterwards. Okay, so let's take a look at here. 1a, can the results of this study be generalized to all 4-year-olds? Now, I'm going to go ahead and circle that one. All is like the population. Here's a question. How did you get these 4-year-olds? What was the random selection of getting them? So we didn't get them. They came to us in some ways, so they were volunteers. So can this be generalized to all 4-year-olds? The answer is no, because the children in the study were not a random selection or sample. of 4-year-olds. Does that make sense? They were volunteers. Oh, can't spell volunteers. We didn't have here a random selection or a sample. Okay, 1B. Based on the study, is it reasonable to say that fast-paced cartoons cause a decrease in executive brain function? Okay, so here's the second part, did we do random assignment? Did we do random assignment? Yes, we did. So if we done random assignment, then we can say cause and effect. Yes, because the 4-year-olds were randomly assigned to watch fast-paced cartoons, watch educational cartoons, or to draw pictures. So in that case, the big idea is that they had random assignment. Okay, let's move on to page 2. All right, on page 2 here, this chart summarizes the appropriate scope of inference based on the design of the study. I'm going to start down here. The question is, were the individuals randomly selected from the population? I'm going to draw my silly stick figures. How does someone get into our experiment or study? Okay, now, if they were randomly selected, then we can say yes. If it was both yes, they were randomly selected, and then here in my green, did we then go ahead and put them into 2 different types of groups? If the answer is yes on that, then you can make an inference about the population and an inference about cause and effect. So basically, this one is based off of this one here. All the cause and effects are if you are randomly assigning them to groups. If you are, how are you getting them? If the individuals are randomly selected, then that talks about the population. Okay, so let's just fill out this chart. So if you have yes in green here and no for yellow, top right here, if they are a no and a yes here, or if they're a no and a no. So those are the conditions you need to think about. Example 1B, are my students playing minty mind games? Mr. Tyson's students insist that their performances on tests will increase when they chew mint gum. Mr. Tyson is skeptical of this claim and suspects that there will be no difference in student performance on tests. Here are 4 possible study designs to address this question at your school. In each case, the response variable will be the test score on a general knowledge test designed by Mr. Tyson. What conclusion can you draw from each of these studies? Okay, remember that one we talked about just giving them gum and see how they do? Okay, so let's read. We have 4 designs here. We'll do designs 1 and 3, and then you can try designs 2 and 4 on your own. Design 1 says, get all the students in your statistics class who participate in the study. Okay, so here's my first one here in blue. Are we getting these individuals randomly selected? I'm going to say no. Okay, and then ask them whether they want to chew mint gum during the test, and divide them into 2 groups based on their answers. Okay, so who's picking here? Me, the researcher, or them, the test subjects? So I think in this part in green, I, as a researcher, are not randomly assigning them, so this would be a no. And then it tells us the mean test scores for students who chewed mint gum during the test is significantly higher than the mean score for the students who didn't chew gum during the test. Okay, so let's review. We didn't have random selection. And then on top of that, so can we make an inference about the population? Can we make an inference about those students? No. We conclude that students in the statistics class who chew gum mint during the test scored higher on average than those who did not chew gum. We see that in the test scores, but can we say there's a cause and effect? The answer is no, because we didn't have any random assignment. Does that make sense how it's working here? Sorry, I tried to use color-coded yellow and green. All right, let's try design number 3. We did it again. Get all the students in your statistics class to participate in the study. Okay, it just seems like a convenience sampling here. So question, back here, that yellow box, were the individuals randomly selected? The answer is no. So there, it's talking about, from back on our big idea, random selection in red there can tell us about the population. So if I don't have random selection, then I can't get an inference or conclusion about the population. With no random selection, the results of the study should only be applied to the students in the study. Okay, so then here, let's read the second part. Randomly assign half the students to chew mint gum while taking the test, and have the remaining half take the test. So we did something, didn't we? We did random assignment. Okay, back in our chart now, what does random assignment tell us? Well, random assignment can tell us what? It can tell us about cause and effect. So what's our conclusion here? We conclude that chewing mint gum while taking a test causes students to score higher on average. Okay, we know that, but only for the statistics students who took part in the study. I'll say only for stats students in the study. Over here, our conclusion was basically we can't say that it's the mint gum. Okay, you guys try design 2 and design 4. Think about it. And then go ahead and press play when you guys are ready to see the answers. All right, design 2. Select a random sample of students from your school to participate in the study. Okay, did we randomly select? Did we have random selection? Yes. Can we make an inference about the entire population of the school? Yes, we can. So this is a good thing. Okay, here it is. Ask them whether they want to choose. So, am I randomly assigning them? No, they're kind of choosing. So the answer is no. So can I do a cause and effect for this one? No. So what conclusion can you make? You can conclude that students at school who chew gum during the test have higher test scores than those who don't chew gum. But remember, because you don't have the cause and effect here, you can't say, same thing as above, can't say mint gum is the cause. Okay, let's look at design number 4. Select a random sample of students from your school to participate in the study. Okay, this is good. So now we have random selection, and now we can make an inference about the population. Randomly assign half of the students to chew gum during the test, and the remaining half won't chew gum. Okay, that's good. Do we have a random assignment? Did we put them into groups? Yes, we did. So now we have here we can make an inference or conclusion of the cause and effect. So what is our conclusion here? We can say that that chewing mint gum causes students to score higher on average for all students. Mint chewing causes. Now I can actually use that word, causes. Higher scores for all. That's the population for all students at the school. Okay, that was example 1B. Let's move on to the next page to talk about learning target number 2. All right, let's go over learning target number 2. It's already filled out because it didn't press record. Evaluate it if a statistical study has been carried out in an ethical manner. Although randomized experiments are the best way to make inferences or conclusions about cause and effect, in some case it isn't ethical or moral to do an experiment. Okay? It would not be a good idea if I said, oh, let me test these junior hires and see my experiment, see how fast they can run. I can compare their times, and I'll just see if they can run faster if I give them lunch or withhold lunch. That would not be right. Number 2, basic standards of data ethics must be obeyed by all studies that gather data from human subjects, both observational studies and experiments. There are international laws about how you test animals, animal cruelty, and those are growing, but I'm kind of like, hey, you know what, if you're going to do animal cruelty, you might as well do plant cruelty and rock cruelty, and you might be harming the air. Okay, we'll stop there. Basic principles of data ethics. All planned studies must be reviewed in advance by an institutional review board charged with protecting the safety and well-being of the subject. So you got to have someone who's looking after you, like a big brother looking after you. Number 2, all individuals who are subjects in the study must give their informed consent before data are collected. Informed means kind of like you are being educated, you know what's going on, you know all the facts, and consent, you're giving their permission. It's like a permission slip, right? Think about you going on a field trip. You kind of want to know where you're going. Yeah. Number 3, all individual data must be kept confidential. I'm going to highlight that you only need these 3 for the basic principles of data ethics. This 4th one applies, but doesn't always happen. All statistical summaries for groups of subjects may be made public. So when I say groups, you know, COVID-19 vaccination, you'll say group number 1, the effective rate was 80%. But I'm not naming who was in that first group. Second group, 83%. I'm saying what the group results were, but not individuals. Okay? All right, example number 2 here. How common is underage drinking? This is all about data ethics. Students in a statistics class wondered what proportion of their schoolmates had consumed alcohol at least once within the last week. The statistics students developed a computer program that would ask this question and record answers anonymously. The students then sought permission from the superintendent and school board, who reviewed their methods and approved. A letter was mailed home to all students in the district explaining the research study, the methods used, and guaranteeing that all answers would be recorded anonymously. The letter stated that the results of the study would be discussed at the next school board meeting and the students can choose not to participate. If they choose not to participate, the parents and students had to sign the letter and return it to the office. Was this study carried out ethically? So if you look at the 3 above, was there some kind of institutional review board? Yes, there was. The school board, or the superintendent there, that I underlined in blue, acts as the institutional review board for high schools and approved the study. So they're kind of like making sure that people aren't going to get hurt here. Okay, do we have informed consent? Yes. In informed consent, people have to be educated about what's happening on, and I underlined that there in green. A letter was mailed home, right? So it kind of says the letter a couple of times. The letter. Whoa. Sure, we can use that letter. The letter. Right? The letter is signed and then returned to kind of show that people are educated about it and are giving their permission. And the last one is individual data kept confidential. It is because, remember in red there, the computer program they created kept answers anonymously. So yes, the study was carried out ethically. All right, let's go on to the next page. You're going to review it all. This reviews both those concepts, and then press play when you want to see the answers. All right. Example 3, review it all. Is foster care for children better than an orphanage? Do abandoned children placed in foster home do better than similar children placed in an institution? Bucharest early intervention project found that the answer is a clear yes. So just to help you understand, an institution might just be a really big place to keep all of the orphans versus the foster care, they're just going to be placed in individual small homes. The subjects were 136 young children abandoned at birth and living in an orphanage in Bucharest, Romania. Half of the children chosen at random were placed in foster homes, and the other half remained in the orphanages. Foster care was not easily available in Romania at the time and was paid for by the study. (3A) What conclusion can we draw from this study? Explain. So the question is, if I have these children, the question is, how did I get these children? That sounds kind of weird, but how did I get these abandoned kids? Did we randomly get them? Well, we randomly, get my purple here, we randomly put them into either the foster care, FC, or the institutional care, I, that's a C, institutional care. So we did that. That's called random assignment. So let me read my answer here. Because this study involved random assignment to the treatments, foster care or institutional care, we can infer that the difference between foster care and institutional care caused the difference in response. So yes, going into foster care was better. We can say that. Causes happier kids. But the question is, how were the kids chosen? Well, however, in blue there, however, we should not generalize this result to the larger population because the 136 children were not randomly selected from the larger population. We can say it works for those 136 kids, but we can't say it's not going to work for the 136,000 kids maybe in Romania or Europe. Okay? So that was reviewing learning target number 1. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The children in the study were too young to provide informed consent. Does this make this study unethical? Explain. Yes, the study was unethical because, well, what did we talk about? Subjects were not able to give informed consent because they were not old enough to know what's going on or the consequences involved. Maybe an orphan was pushed towards the institution, that really big place, and they didn't know how to say no, or they couldn't run away, or maybe they were forced. Also, this was unethical because it doesn't mention it, but then it did not mention, number 2 there, an institutional review board or some kind of agency to give this study accountability. How do you know that they're trying to look out for the kids? So even though they know that foster care is better than a big institution, it was still unethical. All right, so here we learned in Learn Target 1 to make sure to identify appropriate use of information from the sample to make an inference about the population and about appropriate inference about cause and effect. Okay, it's about how do we get them and then how we put them in groups. And learning target number 2, evaluate if a statistical study has been carried out in an ethical manner. Informed consent, confidentiality, and an institutional board. So that was lesson 3.9, shouldn't say homework, using studies wisely. See you guys.
It started out with graphene and then it went to functions. I'm doing FOIL to solve X. Next is the expressions. Now I have to see if X is equal to or greater than 3. Now you make that point on the X-axis. Wait, was it a positive 3 or a negative 3?